The first warning would not have come from the sharks. It would have come from inside the diver's own body, a slight resistance while inhaling, a feeling that each breath was no longer satisfying, a growing pressure inside the chest, then the need to breathe harder, faster, deeper. The diver still had breathing gas, the equipment still appeared to be functioning, but carbon dioxide was beginning to accumulate. And somewhere beyond the dark outline of the wreck, large predators were moving through the water. They had not attacked. They may not even have been interested in the divers. But that was before one diver's breathing rhythm changed, before the controlled movements became violent, before the quiet human silhouette began to resemble something wounded. This is the hypothetical story of the Mudsucker wreck, a wreck dive in cold, open water, a respiratory emergency developing without an obvious alarm, and a terrifying question: could carbon dioxide toxicity transform a diver's panic into a signal that nearby great white sharks would investigate? To answer that, we first need to understand what carbon dioxide does underwater. Most divers are taught to fear running out of gas. They monitor the pressure gauge, they calculate consumption, they watch their depth and remaining time. But carbon dioxide creates a different kind of threat. The cylinder can still contain plenty of breathing gas, the diver can still be inhaling oxygen, and yet the body can feel as though it is suffocating. Carbon dioxide is produced continuously as the body uses oxygen. Under normal conditions, the diver exhales that carbon dioxide through the regulator, but several factors can interfere with that process. A diver may be working too hard, swimming into current, dragging equipment, penetrating a wreck, fighting poor trim, breathing through a system with excessive resistance, taking shallow breaths in an attempt to conserve gas, or using a rebreather whose scrubber is no longer removing carbon dioxide effectively. In each case, the carbon dioxide level in the body can begin rising faster than the diver can eliminate it. This condition is called hypercapnia, and it does not always arrive with a clear mechanical warning. The diver may initially feel warm, uncomfortable, slightly breathless. A headache may develop. Concentration becomes difficult. The diver may know that something feels wrong without understanding exactly what it is. Then the breathing reflex takes control. Humans can voluntarily hold their breath for a limited time, but rising carbon dioxide creates an increasingly powerful drive to breathe. That drive is not a suggestion. It is a primitive survival command. The brain interprets the rising carbon dioxide level as an immediate threat of suffocation. The diver begins breathing faster. But if the underlying problem is excessive work, poor ventilation, or contaminated breathing loop gas, breathing harder may not solve the problem. It may increase the workload. The diver pulls harder against the regulator. The chest muscles work more aggressively. The heart rate rises. The diver produces even more carbon dioxide. This creates a physiological feedback loop. Carbon dioxide produces air hunger. Air hunger produces harder breathing. Harder breathing creates more carbon dioxide, and the rising carbon dioxide begins degrading judgment. This is the biological tripwire. The diver may still appear conscious. The eyes are open, the hands are moving, the legs are kicking, but rational control is beginning to disappear. A calm diver would stop, signal the buddy, reduce exertion, establish buoyancy, switch to a known, safe breathing source if necessary, and begin a controlled exit. A hypercapnic diver may do the opposite. The diver may reject assistance, claw at the regulator, swim faster, lose control of depth, abandon the planned route, or bolt toward the surface. The danger is that the diver's body now feels certain that immediate escape is the only possible solution. There is no time for analysis, no patience for procedure, no ability to think several steps ahead. Only one command remains: get out. Now place that diver beside a wreck in shark habitat. Before the emergency, the divers are moving slowly. Their fins produce measured strokes. Their bodies remain horizontal. Their bubbles rise in regular columns. Their lights sweep steadily across the wreck. To a nearby shark, this may be an unusual scene, but not necessarily the behavior of injured prey. Then, the hypercapnia begins. The regulator exhaust becomes faster and more irregular. The diver's hands move suddenly. The fins strike the water with greater force. The body changes direction repeatedly. Buoyancy control deteriorates. The diver rises, falls, twists, and accelerates. The calm silhouette has become chaotic. This is where the internal medical emergency becomes an external sensory event. Sound behaves differently underwater than it does in air. Water is denser. Vibration travels efficiently through it. A shark does not need to identify a specific object from a sound in the way a human might recognize a voice. It can detect changes in the surrounding environment, irregular disturbances, pulses, low-frequency movement, the displacement created by something struggling. Experiments have shown that some sharks will orient toward intermittent, low-frequency sounds. These sounds may resemble biological activity associated with distressed or struggling animals. That does not mean every splash attracts a shark. It does not mean regulator bubbles are a guaranteed dinner bell. And it does not mean sharks automatically interpret a panicking diver as prey. But irregular, forceful movement can create curiosity, especially if sharks are already close. The phrase, "the sharks heard the diver breathing," is therefore too simple. The regulator itself may not be the decisive signal. The larger signal would be the complete disturbance pattern. Rapid exhaust, aggressive finning, impacts against the wreck, sudden changes in depth, water displaced by the diver's entire body, possibly equipment striking metal. The diver becomes a moving source of unpredictable vibration. Now imagine the great whites are already patrolling the perimeter of the wreck. They may be following fish, investigating scent, using the wreck structure as part of a wider hunting area. The divers have entered their environment, not the other way around. At first, the sharks keep their distance. They circle outside the diver's strongest field of vision. A healthy dive team would respond by maintaining awareness. The divers would stay close, face the animals, avoid separating, avoid frantic movement, maintain a controlled position near the wreck, and leave the water smoothly if the sharks became too interested. But hypercapnia affects more than breathing. It affects cognition. The impaired diver may develop tunnel vision. Attention narrows toward the sensation of suffocation. The diver no longer scans the water, no longer tracks the buddy, no longer notices the shark passing behind. The greatest threat in the diver's mind is not the animal, it is the next breath. This creates sensory overload. The diver is receiving too much information while losing the ability to process it. The regulator feels resistant. The chest is burning. The mask feels restrictive. The wreck seems to be closing in. The shark appears, disappears, and reappears. The buddy reaches out. The diver pulls away. Each stimulus becomes another source of panic. The dive team's defensive geometry begins to collapse. A group of divers can present a large, coordinated shape. A single diver separated from that group presents a smaller, less unpredictable target. The hypercapnic diver may swim above the others, below them, away from the wreck or into open water. That separation matters. A shark investigating the group now has access to the diver's blind side. Great white sharks do not need to charge immediately. They may pass at a distance, change direction, approach from below or behind, then widen the circle. The diver's impaired judgment makes these movements harder to detect. The animal is calculating distance while the diver is fighting the sensation of suffocation. This is the geometry of vulnerability. One animal remains controlled, the other is losing control. The situation becomes most dangerous when the diver begins a desperate ascent. For a healthy diver, leaving the wreck should be a deliberate sequence. Establish communication, confirm the route, control buoyancy, maintain visual contact, begin ascending at a safe rate, monitor decompression obligations, keep the sharks in sight, do not create unnecessary disturbance. But the hypercapnic diver does not experience the ascent as a procedure. The surface becomes an emergency exit. The diver may inflate the buoyancy compensator, kick vertically, drop equipment, ignore the computer, and accelerate upward. This sudden vertical movement creates several dangers at once. First, the diver may ascend too quickly. Expanding gas in the lungs can cause serious injury if the diver holds the breath. Rapid ascent also increases the risk of decompression sickness. Second, expanding gas inside the buoyancy compensator can make the ascent accelerate further. The diver becomes increasingly buoyant. The faster the diver rises, the more the gas expands. The more it expands, the faster the diver rises. Third, the vertical escape separates the diver from the team. The wreck and other divers are left below. The diver enters open water alone. Fourth, the movement becomes visually dramatic. A dark object is now kicking violently toward the surface. Bubbles explode around it. Fins flash. Equipment swings. The diver has changed from a calm horizontal figure into a rapidly fleeing shape. Again, this does not guarantee an attack, but fleeing behavior can increase interest from a nearby predator. The shark may follow. It may approach more closely. It may attempt to inspect the unfamiliar object, and a large shark's method of inspection can cause catastrophic injury, even if the animal does not intend to consume a human. This is where we must separate science from storytelling. There is evidence that sharks can detect and investigate intermittent low-frequency disturbances. There is safety guidance advising people to avoid excessive splashing and erratic movement in shark habitat. There is also extensive evidence that most encounters do not become attacks. Scuba divers spend enormous amounts of time near sharks without being bitten. The presence of a shark does not mean the diver is being hunted, and a shark approaching a distressed diver does not prove the distress caused predatory intent. The Mudsucker scenario is therefore not a simple chain. Carbon dioxide rises. The diver panics. The sharks hear dinner. The sharks attack. Real behavior is not that predictable. A more accurate reconstruction would be carbon dioxide impairs the diver. The diver begins moving erratically. That movement creates additional visual, pressure, and acoustic disturbances. A nearby shark may investigate. The diver's impaired judgment prevents an organized response. A rapid ascent or separation increases vulnerability. And the encounter becomes more dangerous because the human has lost control. The primary failure remains physiological. The sharks do not create the hypercapnia. They exploit or merely encounter the chaos that follows it. Now let us examine what might have caused the carbon dioxide buildup at the wreck. The first possibility is excessive exertion. Wreck sites can experience current. A diver swimming hard while carrying heavy equipment produces more carbon dioxide. At depth, breathing gas density also increases. Dense gas can be harder to move through the airways and breathing equipment. The diver may feel that each breath requires more effort. If the diver continues pushing rather than stopping, the workload can exceed the body's ability to ventilate effectively. The second possibility is skip breathing. Some divers unconsciously delay exhalation or take shallow breaths because they want to conserve cylinder gas. This is dangerous. Breathing less effectively can allow carbon dioxide to accumulate. The pressure gauge may fall more slowly, but the diver's body is not being ventilated properly. A person can still have gas in the cylinder while becoming physiologically unable to continue. The third possibility is increased breathing resistance. A poorly adjusted regulator, a mechanical fault, a restrictive mouthpiece, an awkward body position, a rebreather loop with excessive resistance, or simply the greater density of gas at depth. Any of these can increase the work required to breathe. The fourth possibility applies particularly to rebreathers. A rebreather recirculates breathing gas. The diver's exhaled carbon dioxide must be removed by an absorbent material inside the scrubber. If the scrubber is exhausted, improperly packed, wet, damaged, or overwhelmed by workload, carbon dioxide can pass through into the inhaled gas. The diver then breathes some of that carbon dioxide again. This is known as breakthrough. The diver may not receive a clear warning before symptoms begin. Oxygen sensors do not automatically detect carbon dioxide. A rebreather can display an acceptable oxygen level while the diver is becoming dangerously hypercapnic. Modern systems may include scrubber temperature monitoring. This does not necessarily measure carbon dioxide directly. Instead, it tracks the active reaction zone inside the scrubber and estimates how much absorbent capacity remains. Some specialized systems have attempted direct carbon dioxide sensing. Infrared technology can identify carbon dioxide based on how the gas absorbs light, but the breathing loop is warm, humid, and wet. Water vapor can interfere with the reading. Sensors must remain accurate under pressure and across changing temperatures. A sensor may warn of carbon dioxide reaching the inhalation side of the loop, but hypercapnia can also result from inadequate ventilation or excessive work, even when the inhaled gas itself contains little additional carbon dioxide. That is why no single sensor solves the entire problem. The most advanced protection still begins with the diver. Recognize excessive breathing effort. Do not continue pushing into current or restriction. Do not attempt to conserve gas by breathing shallowly. Respect scrubber limits. Pack and assemble the rebreather exactly as required. Complete the full pre-breathe and equipment checks. Carry accessible bailout gas. And if unexplained breathing distress develops, respond before rational judgment begins to deteriorate. So the correct response depends on the equipment and circumstances. An open-circuit diver may stop exertion, stabilize, signal the buddy, and begin a controlled exit. A rebreather diver who suspects carbon dioxide breakthrough may need to bail out immediately to a known open-circuit supply, but even bailout may not create instant relief. Carbon dioxide already accumulated in the body takes time to clear. The diver may continue experiencing extreme air hunger after switching gas. That is where training becomes critical. The diver must resist the urge to bolt, ventilate, control buoyancy, maintain contact, and exit without creating a second emergency. At a shark-inhabited wreck, the team would face an additional challenge. They must manage the medical problem without becoming disorganized. One diver assists the casualty, another monitors the sharks. The group stays compact, movements remain deliberate. The casualty is not allowed to disappear upward alone. The ascent is controlled as far as the emergency permits. This is not easy. A hypercapnic diver may fight the person attempting to help. The casualty may pull at the rescuer's regulator, grab equipment, kick uncontrollably, or reject the bailout supply because the brain remains convinced that nothing provides enough air. This is why prevention matters more than underwater rescue. By the time severe hypercapnia is obvious, the diver most affected may be the person least capable of solving it. There is a deeper lesson in the Mudsucker scenario. We often describe shark encounters as sudden attacks from outside the human system. The predator arrives, the diver becomes the victim. But sometimes, the first collapse occurs inside the diver. The body's chemistry changes, perception narrows, control disappears. The diver begins producing the movement profile of distress. The sharks may only arrive later. That does not make the diver responsible for being attacked. It does not make sharks mindless killing machines. It means physiological failure can alter the relationship between a human and the surrounding environment. A calm diver is difficult to isolate. A coordinated team can observe and respond. A panicked diver becomes unpredictable, and unpredictability is dangerous around any large predator. The final message is not that great whites are listening for regulator bubbles. That would be sensational and scientifically misleading. The more defensible conclusion is that sharks can detect disturbances in the water, and erratic activity may encourage investigation. Hypercapnia is dangerous because it produces exactly the kind of loss of control a diver cannot afford. It damages judgment, increases exertion, destroys team positioning, encourages an uncontrolled ascent, and may change a diver's movement from calm and deliberate to frantic and vulnerable. At the hypothetical Mudsucker wreck, the most important predator was not initially outside the diver. It was the rising carbon dioxide inside the bloodstream. The sharks did not create the emergency. They entered an emergency already in progress, and by the time their shapes emerged from the darkness, the diver may no longer have possessed the calm thinking required to survive either threat. In the ocean, every movement sends information. Every fin stroke displaces water, every impact creates vibration, every rapid ascent changes the diver's silhouette. But the most important signal may begin before any of those things. It begins with breathing. Steady breathing reflects control. Controlled breathing preserves judgment, and judgment keeps a diver from becoming separated, disoriented, and frantic. When the respiratory rhythm collapses, everything else can collapse behind it. The dive plan, the buddy system, buoyancy, defensive positioning, and the controlled route back to the surface. That is the real warning from the Mudsucker wreck. Not that carbon dioxide automatically summons great white sharks, but that an invisible respiratory emergency can transform a capable diver into a distress signal and leave that diver unable to respond when something in the darkness notices.